And we're back. Hello, everybody. It's me, Valerie Monroe, and me, Bookwormy. And we are right in the middle of Journey to Nagwanis. Wait, do you hear what's going on? Well, yesterday, if you remember, last time we read, Brogdon was sending up smoke signals to get John. Tell them why he needs to get John's help. He needs to get John's help because the hairy man that he found is wounded in many places. So let's see if the smoke signals work. Let's see if John gets his message. Let's read on to find out. Okay. Chapter 17, Plans and More Plans. Brogdon sat on the large rock and watched the final puff of smoke rise into the sky. He kept thinking about the huge hairy man and hoped with all his might that he was still alive and not in too much pain. He wanted to scramble back down the mountainside and check on him, but he knew that he needed to wait. Hopefully, John had already seen the signal, climbed into one of the boats moored on the island, and headed to where his Jeep was parked on the mainland. He would have to drive along the twisty, winding roads and search for the point where the smoke signals originated. But Brogdon felt confident that he would do so, and hopefully very quickly. Brogdon thought about the 3 arrows while he sat there. Who had slung them at the hairy man? And why? Were the culprits still out there looking for more prey? How dangerous of a situation was this? After what seemed like hours, but was really only about 30 minutes, Brogdon heard the crunch of gravel and the rumble of an engine as John's Jeep pulled up. He rose to his feet and waved furiously so that John could spot him. As soon as the Jeep came to a halt, Brogdon scooted down and ran toward his friend. John knelt down and shook his hand. I hadn't planned on shaking your hand until harvest day, John admitted, but I knew the moment I saw the puffs of smoke that you must be in some sort of trouble. Brogdon nodded. It's this hairy man. He's been hurt with arrows. I think one of them was stuck in his bone and he pulled it out and now he can't walk, he cried. We've got to get him out of there. Hold on just a second now, said John. What do you mean, a hairy man? There's no time to explain. He'll die. They'll catch him and kill him. We have to go now, pleaded Brogdon. Who was trying to kill the hairy man? John asked. I don't know, wailed Brogdon. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out what we're getting ourselves into, John explained. Where is this hairy man right now? As calmly as possible, Brogdon said that the hairy man was lying on the path by the lake. He also explained how he had climbed up here to send the smoke signal. Understanding that the situation was dire, John scooped Brogdon up, deposited him into the Jeep's passenger seat, and buckled him in. Then he threw the Jeep into reverse, spun it into a semicircle, and began racing down the winding roads toward the shore of Lake Bahakmo. Brogdon pointed in the direction he wanted John to go. To the left. Now go that way. Back a little. Turn here. Eventually, they reached the point where they had to park the Jeep and head for the shore on foot. Brogdon hung on piggyback style as John raced through the backyards of all those house dwellers. Finally, they reached the spot on the trail where the hairy man had lain. But he was nowhere in sight. He was right here, Brogdon insisted. Wait, look. John pointed at a thick trail of blood that led into a clump of bushes. Holding their breath, they followed the blood, not sure of what they would find as they peeked around the largest bush. Che was there, sitting on the ground next to the hairy man, patting his shoulder lightly with one wing. It was hard to tell if the man was dead or alive. Oh my, it can't be, spluttered John. But it must be. It can't be anything but. But what? Asked Brogdon. This hairy man is a Sasquatch, John said, clearly astonished. Some people refer to his kind as Bigfoot. I've heard. I want to show you something. It's a lunchbox I have. This is what we're talking about. Bigfoot. Sasquatch. That's the hairy man. Some people refer to his kind as a Bigfoot. I've heard of sightings of them, but I've never actually seen one until now. Is he alive? Brogdon asked. John leaned down. He laid his head on the Sasquatch's hairy chest and listened for his heartbeat. Barely, he answered. We have to act quickly. We can't call an ambulance, and I don't think I have the strength to lift him. The Jeep is not an option because people could see him, and who knows what kind of chaos that could cause. And I don't know if he'd fit anyway. So what do we do? There really is only one option, John said calmly. It could put him in greater danger, but it solves the problem of keeping him hidden. He will receive the medical attention he needs, and it's the perfect place to recuperate. He turned to Brogdon, who was still waiting to hear the plan and wondering if John was going to get around to telling him. You stay here with this kind bird and keep watch, John said. That's Che, Brogdon told him, realizing that they hadn't been properly introduced. You're a great doctor, Che, John declared. Great doctor, repeated Che. We better bring Che to the island as well, John muttered to himself. Can't have him telling anyone what he's seen. Then he turned back to Brogdon. You and Che stay put. Okay, Brogdon said, but John, what's the plan? Oh, sorry. I'm going to drive back to the parking spot that I have on the mainland and return with my motorboat. Then we will transport the Sasquatch to Sunset Island, where Elaine and I can take care of his wounds. There's no one out on the lake at this time of year, so we should be able to get him there without any trouble. Brogdon nodded and smiled, his eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, John. Of course, of course. He was back to thinking out loud, Brogdon could see. I'm not sure how I will lift him into the boat. He's several hundred pounds at least, or that's going to be kind of tricky. I'd better bring along a lever of some sort or a cart and some blankets. Maybe I can drag him. I'll figure it out along the way. Good God, I hope the boat will hold him. And then John seemed to snap out of his trance and into action mode. I'll be back, he announced boldly, and then ran off. John heard the tires grind on the dirt path as the Jeep sped off. Brogdon lay on the ground next to the Sasquatch to wait. Che seemed to understand that help was on the way. He continued patting the Sasquatch soothingly. They stayed so silent that Brogdon could hear the lapping of the waves upon the shore. And then he heard a small pile of leaves roll by, caught in the autumn breeze. A short time after that, he heard a sound that made him snap to attention. It was a motorboat. He sat up straight and listened as the engine cut off. And then there were voices, growing louder by the moment. He could tell they were house dwellers. And as the boat floated closer to the shore, he began to catch snippets of their conversation. Your fault. Well, you agreed it was the best thing to do, so I don't see how you can blame me. Years and years. Then you should have had a better plan. Now no one will ever believe me. Brogdon peered around the side of the bush. A small motorboat was floating along the shoreline. In an effort to keep the craft from running aground, a woman with a large poof of frizzy brown hair was kneeling in the bow, pushing away from the sand with a long oar. A man with a long gray ponytail was at the steering wheel, and lines of exhaustion crossed his face. Listen, Sasha, he said, rubbing his bloodshot eyes, we've been at this all night. What do you say we drop the anchor and take a nap? We can keep looking once we're rested. Sasha wheeled around so quickly that their boat tipped wildly from side to side. Rest! How can I rest? I had him. I had a Sasquatch. He's around here somewhere. I know it. The man rubbed his eyes again and lowered his head onto the steering wheel. We've been along every part of the shore and there's nothing, not a trace, he yawned. He must have escaped into the hills. It's impossible, Will. Sasha turned to him with her hands on her hips and her jaw jutting out. I hit him several times with those arrows. He couldn't have gone far. So now we know who harmed the Sasquatch. You did get some good shots in, Will admitted. Need I remind you that we've waited our whole lives for this moment, Sasha whined, and I can feel it slipping away fast. Let me take a short nap and then we can keep searching, I swear, Will pleaded. I could swim to shore, Sasha said. She sounded like she was talking more to herself than to Will. But then what would I do if I found the Sasquatch? I can't lift him by myself. She glanced at her companion, but he was out like a light and had already begun to snore. Sasha picked up the anchor from the floor of the boat and walked to the bow. After wrapping the rope around a silver cleat, she tossed the anchor over the side and watched the line gradually tighten as it sunk to the bottom. Okay, 1 hour, she grumbled to herself, fiddling with her watch. But that's all. As soon as the second alarm goes off, we head into the hills. And then she eased herself into the passenger seat and leaned her head against one of the windows. Within seconds, the bobbing of the boat and the gentle waves lulled her to sleep. Brogdon's stomach filled with queasiness. How would John dock his motorboat with the Sasquatch hunter's boat already there. He pictured John racing to the other side of Lake Wahakmo in his Jeep. It would take him a few minutes for him to park, untie the boat, and make his way across the lake. He kept glancing at the Sasquatch and tried not to think about what would happen if John took too long. And that's where we'll stop for today. So that Lady Sasha was hunting the Sasquatch? That's right. I don't like her very much. Well, we'll find out what happens next time. We'll see if John can get to the Sasquatch and help him before Sasha and Will do. Oh, this is getting tricky. You're not kidding. Please join us next time.